Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. This is a very important day, and we certainly appreciate your time and your efforts to be here today. This is our second Black Male Unemployment Forum, and our topic today is acceptance and accountability for ex-offenders in our communities. During our first forum back in March, we heard a lot from you about what efforts, actions, and options were available for Black men who had come back to our communities from prison. Those comments, that feedback led to us narrowing the topic down today to some honesty and some efforts to talk about the real challenges facing Black men coming out of prison back into our communities. We know that there needs to be an openness to accommodate them when they return from prison, but there also needs to be some accountability to help raise the standard of what we expect once we accept our brothers back into our community. Because we know that families are going to be better if we create better opportunities for them, and our society as a whole will improve. So give yourself a hand for being here today. Thank you so much. Our moderator will take it from here. Is Mr. David Mitchell. Let's give him a hand.
All right, thank you, Dr. Boyce, for that introduction and the opening of our session today. We're back here again with an excellent panel to talk to you about, I'm going to introduce the panel in just a second, to talk to you about Black male unemployment and some of the things that we talk about when they are out of jail now, what happens when they get back in the real world. And this is an expert panel that's going to share a lot of great ideas as to how we can get people gainfully employed. Just a little bit of history on me. I am David Mitchell. I currently serve as president of Talent Management Solutions, which is a professional placement temporary staffing firm here in Greenville. I've been in that business about 11 years now. Formerly, I worked as human resources manager for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals in Greenville, South Carolina. And before that, I worked as an HR supervisor for our talent and science. So I have a pretty extensive background in human resources. So when I started giving my input, you know I do have some background in hiring folks. So the moderator's talking too much, but the moderator has some level of experience in this field, as well as the panel that I'm going to introduce in a few minutes, because Black male unemployment, this is our second forum. And we have some repeat panelists, and they're back because they provided great information to the audience before. And we feel today is going to add value to what we have to say in this forum. And one of the greatest things about it is not only to hear from the panel, but also to be able to hear from the audience. So you have an opportunity to talk and ask questions. And all I ask is that you kind of keep your questions to questions or comments, making it kind of short so that the panel can respond. But we're going to hear from our panel first. And what I'm going to do is introduce you to individuals that will be speaking with me today. And in no particular form here that we're asking questions. But I'd like to introduce Minister Nate Floyd. Minister Floyd is associate pastor at Mount Pleasant Missionary Baptist Church and is the founder and director of Heavenly Touch Ministries. Because of her love for God's people and belief that we deserve a second or third chance, she leads the church prison ministry and is the coordinator of the Unshackle Me Community Project, which helps ex-offenders re-enter the society and become educated, skillful, and employed. Let's welcome Minister Nate Floyd. My good friend as well, Ms. Ava Smith. She is president of Flat Fee Recruiting. Ava has over 19 years of experience in human resources as a professional. Her experience includes employee relations, compliance, recruitment, retention, and training. She began her career as a in the nonprofit sector and shifted into manufacturing and the corporate arena and staffing. She progressively moved upward in her position, serving in a range of roles from HR assistant to serving as HR director. And I can tell you she has many more accolades than that. Let's give a round to Ms. Our next panelist is Mr. Jeremy Wendell. He's assistant agent in charge of probation and parole here in South Carolina. He's a 15-year veteran of the South Carolina Department of Probation and Parole and Partner Services, where he currently serves as an assistant agent in charge in the Greenville County office. Jeremy holds a bachelor's degree in science from Bob Jones University and has completed a coursework through Liberty University's seminary program. He and his wife, Marina, have been married for nearly 18 years and have 2 daughters. Let's give a round to Jeremy. That's my good friend. I can joke with her. Dr. Caroline Caldwell. She's Executive Director of New Mind and Health and Care New Mind Health Care Right Reflight. New Mind and Health Care is an organization that she started as a micro-purpose to preserve families and help children prosper under the tutelage of their parents, men whom are estranged due to involvement in their parents in the criminal justice system. Her past experience has been as a special services coordinator in the Greenville Mental Health Center and supervisor for adult admissions at the Greenville Mental Health Center here in Greenville. Education at Capella University, Montclair State University. Let's give a round of applause. And my good friend, the Honorable Senator Theo Mitchell, who has no relation with the great friend, we feel like brothers, we are brothers for current-wise, but I do welcome him to the panel. And he basically doesn't need an introduction, even though he didn't sit one in, but he has served as a former senator of the state of South Carolina, representing the upstate of South Carolina, has many accolades, and a distinguished lawyer and attorney for many who have served and have been kept out of jail based on his representation. So we want to give a round of applause to our great senator. With that, we're going to start with our questions, and we're going to spend about an hour with this panel, correct?
Correct.
And then we'll hopefully have an opportunity to ask questions. And do forgive me, I'm still battling a little bit of bronchitis, so you can hear a little bit of my voice. I was fairly ill last week, but I have hopefully recovered enough to get us through the day. So I do have a bottle of water here. If not, I know Minister Johnson will make sure I have something to drink. Let's look at our abstract. We start talking about black male employment in this form. It says acceptance and accountability for ex-offenders in our communities. Ex-felons face difficult challenges when entering our communities. African American men with a prison conviction rate face even more difficulty finding employment after serving their sentences. The challenges of finding housing, employment, and places where they may serve and be welcomed are extremely difficult. The purpose of this form is to identify the resources that can help improve the employment opportunities for black men when they are returned to our communities from prison. It's a huge challenge for all of us. But with our panel, we hope to be able to get into some of those discussions as to how we can do it. And your feedback can be welcome later on as to how we can build on the nuggets that you share with us in order to help those who have served prison sentences transition not only back into life, but also in the workplace and back into their families. Let's look at personal development. Each year, over 650,000 ex-offenders leave prison to enter the free world, facing a tough road ahead. 2/3 return to prison within 3 years. That's recidivism. Their reentry is fraught with problems that lead to rejections, disappointments, and temptations. Various resources to address the psychological and practical day-to-day challenges that they face as being ex-offenders. The question I have for those on the panel, and I think this is a great question to ask with Jeremy on, what are some of the practical steps that an ex-felon can take to be gainfully employed? And then we'll work that way down. So Jeremy, can you share with that?
I think a few things that folks can do to try to benefit themselves as far as employment goes. First thing is work on their prior record. Through the expungement process and the pardon process, there can be some ground gained in being able to obtain certain types of jobs and licenses. So I think that's a place to start if they have the resources to be able to do that, which is difficult for folks first coming out of the Department of Corrections. The second thing is to take advantage of really our challenge is to connect folks, excuse me, I'm sorry, with the resources that are available out in the community. And taking advantages of those resources is very important, knowing where they are and taking advantage of them. There are organizations out there specifically geared to assist in working with ex-offenders in how to present themselves to employers, how to discuss their record. It's not something that you want to avoid. It's something that you want to, be able to engage the employer on. There's some resources out there There's also some good educational resources. Bring the Tech, we're fortunate in our area to have some good resources at Bring the Tech, some quick jobs programs that will give folks a very quick start, regardless of in some cases, regardless of the prior educational experience as well. Give them some opportunities to have a certificate or specific training that employers are looking for in somebody who they're looking to hire. So, working to make themselves marketable and engaging those resources. I think probably the number one practical thing that anybody can do is find a mentor. I think one of the key issues that face ex-offenders coming out of the Department of Corrections is that they lose hope. We can work on all the other things, but if you lose hope, then we're going to have a hard time getting you over the obstacles that you're facing. And I think mentoring programs are specifically important in partnering somebody up with somebody who has some experience and who has some maybe history themselves and have been successful in guiding that person along, being a cheerleader, being a coach, even a corrector at times. But I think hope is one of the vital important things that keeping hope alive as we move forward, because it is very difficult, and folks will practically face disappointments. And so how they deal with those and move on is very important, and that emotional care and how they are helped to be moved forward is vitally important. So those are just a couple of things that we have access to here in the community that we can do help folks along that they need to be looking for when they come out of the community.
Thank you, Jim. And if you could share with us, we see a number of people who come in right out of jail. I mean, I've had people literally come in straight from the penitentiary to my office to look for a job. And some of the challenges that we face with client companies. So if you can share with your perspective as an employer, what are some of the challenges that ex-felons can overcome in order to become gainful employed? And then, Carl, I got a different question for you on that same line.
It
I'm sorry.
Okay. I do see, and this question is geared towards the psychological effects of things, and everything starts with your mind. Your mind drives your perspective dictates your reality dictates how you react. How you react is what you're going to look like when you walk into our agencies looking for a job. Among the African American community, the word therapy is a hard pill to swallow, but counseling is so crucial when you're in this situation, because a lot of things are deep-rooted issues that you actually exhibit certain behaviors behind. So first I would say get counseling and making sure that psychologically you are becoming well. Because if you are not well mentally, then everything that you try to do, including walking into that company and trying to apply for a job, it's going to show. I can tell when there's an angry black man that walks into my office versus a man that has just made a mistake that wants to improve his life. That type of person is hard to help, because in their lens, the whole world is against them. So I would advise you to get some help. I would also, when you talk about the psychological side of things, consider, like you said, you want a mentor, but for me, having a tainted past, a lot of people ask me, why do you do so much for the community? It was a drive where I shifted, I flipped my anger, I flipped my perspective inside out, and I decided to give back to my community what I felt like I took from the community. So in your job search, sometimes the psychological touch can be, what can I do to help my community? Not walking around saying, what does the community owe me? Or what can I get out of my community solely? So when you start giving, it drives, again, that psychological lens that you have. You start feeling good about yourself. You start feeling like you're a part of your community, and it shows. And in turn, people want to help you. Essentially, that's what happened to me. People saw me reaching out, and people reached back out to me, and that helped me to become successful. I like the quick start that he mentioned, but A lot of times when I'm dealing with people that are applying for jobs and I look at the practical thing like the resume, they don't have anything, or they have a huge gap. Sometimes your start may not be a quick start. Sometimes it's an apprenticeship or an opportunity to volunteer to get certain skills. Sometimes it's about building that skill set so that you can go out, so you can come to people like David and myself and apply for jobs that you're qualified for. But you've got to be realistic about that. If you walk in the door with no skills, plus a chip on your shoulder, plus a lens of, I'm this mark in this community, it's not going to work. Sometimes you have to be willing to step back with the support of other people, learn a trade, learn a skill, build on it, and then approach us where we can help you better. Because if psychologically you're not well and you come in with a blank resume and we say, I can't help you, then you leave even worse than when you came. And that's not our goal.
Okay, thank you. From a psychological standpoint, I think Dr. Caldwell shared this question, this story experience at our last forum. Probably about 3 years ago, I had a young man come into my office. Had been out of jail for about 3 weeks. Was pretty frustrated with the employment search. Well, fresh out of jail, serving 10 years. There's not much I could do for him or do with it. That man walked to my office at 2 o'clock. I get home at 6 o'clock, and I'm looking at the 6 o'clock news. The guy had the same shirt pants on when they arrested him for going up the street and robbing a bank and beating the crap out of 2 tellers at the bank. So he literally had to leave my office after being rejected because of my policies and my rules. Go rob a bank. Now he's facing 35 to life, finishing his first sentence. So when you see that dejection and rejection and pain that these individuals are going through, how do we deal with that in their re-entry to the workforce? Because that still lives with me, because I know he left my parking lot and went straight to that bank and robbed. Because I can't get a job, I might as well go back to where I came from. And that's been with me for a long time. That's the story I'll always share.
I'm going to answer that question from 2 perspectives. I'm going to answer it from a community perspective. What can we do as individuals? And again, it's back to what Jeremy said. It's about instilling hope. I did a kind of pilot study with an offender that I was working with, and I had him go just walk in cold, ask for jobs, let everybody know. First thing he said is, I'm an ex-felon. 35 attempts and 35 no's. When you have a mandate, sometimes with supervision to make sure that you're employed, you have a mandate sometimes for child support. That's very disheartening and very disturbing for the most mentally sound of us. So what we can do as individuals, and again, maybe what David could have done in that instance, and not that anything you could have done would have changed that young man's mind if that was where he was at, but we do have to say, we're here for you. We do have to encourage. We do have to say, just like Ms. Smith said, you can volunteer. We've got to get you some skills. We've got to formulate a plan so that we can start to move forward. It's the short-term goals that matter. When someone can at least say, okay, I don't have a GED, then you can say, here's where we're going to go, here's who we're going to talk to, and here's the process so that we can meet that goal. So in 3 days, what we're going to do is we're going to at least have made contact with thus and so. You can do that. That's a doable goal. That's a success. And that's what we have to do, is we have to start breaking the process down to small increments where there is momentum, where there is forward moving, and you can see it. It's tangible, it's visible. Because saying, I need a job, how do you get a job? What do you need to get that job? So that's individually and community-wise what we can do. Now I'm going to talk about what I do. What I do is I have a nonprofit organization that is based on changing how you think, so we can change what you believe, and then we can change what you do. It's that simple. When crime is an option, that's a value. That's a thought system. That's a means to an end. If I want to get to here, these are the steps that I can take. We have to change that. We literally have to reframe how you think so that you understand, for this goal, there are certain things that are not an option. And in order for you to accept that, then I have to show you a plan that can actually work. And that's what I do in terms of demonstrating for you that you can get to point A and point B without committing any crimes, with making little successes that will build into very big successes that you can see. You're not going to jump straight to go. That's just not a reality. But you do need help to accept that reality. It's not easy, but it's doable.
Thank you, Dr. Caldwell. Minister Floyd and Senators, I want to have you guys share with us on part B of our question. Let me set that up for you. It says ex-felons have a much lower rate of recidivism when they are released into stable living environments and caring families. Without these two safety nets, most ex-felons are dead on arrival or doomed on arrival. Ex-felons who are released from prison acquire gainful employment, have the support and love of their loved ones, and are connected in a higher power, much more likely to stay out of prison longer than in many cases. Minister Floyd, you've been a minister and understanding the being connected to a higher power and understand that family support. Share with us, how can a person who recently released but having a difficult time adjusting to life outside of those prison walls, how can they reduce their chance of returning to the penal system?
Thank you, David. I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be here today. And the number one issue is being true to self. You first have to understand and accept the fact that you made a mistake. Once you learn to forgive yourself, allow God to minister to your spirit, you will be able to face other individuals. I think everyone needs to get connected to some church. Everyone in church has been in or jail, around jail, or have a family member that's in jail or getting out of jail. Most of the ministers affiliated with ministry, when we operate out of a prison ministry, it's because we've either been there or we've experienced a lifestyle that caused us to be accustomed to going in and out of prisons. I spent 9 years in a federal prison. God spoke to my spirit and told me, I knew when I came home I had a place to go. But it didn't matter that my mother was going to be there or my father was going to be there. I needed to show up. I needed to be accountable for my actions when I got out. And the first thing that I did before I left prison was I asked God to go before me. We have to stop playing the blame game. There's no one to blame for any actions that you make except yourself. No one put a gun to your head and asked you to go in, buy drugs or alcohol, rob banks. It doesn't matter what your crime was. Be accountable. So the number one way to stay out of prison is to be accountable. Go to someone that you can trust. Share your hurts. Share your pains. A mentor is good, but you need a confidant. You need someone that you can trust. Someone that's not going to judge you for your past. Me, myself, I've been one of those persons that I really didn't fall sheepishly to people not liking me. I didn't care whether you liked me or not. Some days I didn't like me. So you have to understand that you're not going to be liked by everybody. And just being true to yourself.
Thank you, Minister. Senator, you've served many years as an attorney, representing many people who have been in trouble and kept them out of trouble in the courtrooms. But you also have served as a lawmaker. And I believe, I'm not incorrect, you served as on the penal parole committee for the Senate, right? Chairman, I thought so. So share with us, from your perspective, understanding of how we can help individuals once they are released and from the parole or probation or pardon system when Nigeria overseas that you were the appointee in the Senate over. Help us understand how we can make better laws and reduce those laws that hurt the Black community, where the support will be there for their families.
Thank you very much, David. First thing we have to understand is that when you go in prison, they're not there to wipe your eyes and dry your tears. They're there, in essence, first to get your attention and to get you in a position to where you are subservient. I served as chairman of the Corrections and Penology Committee for 3.5 years before I was put in prison. Consequently, I learned that the basis of punishment is to demean. It's a very demeaning process in regards to an inmate being placed and incarcerated. It's a very difficult thing to actually uplift that individual when they've served 10, 12, 15 years to come out and then say, go and sin no more. Knock them on the knuckles and go out here and get yourself a job. But most of them come out, they have to deal with, number one, unfortunately, support. Because most of them have children. And all of a sudden, probation, parole, and pardons see fit to impose that support back on them. Now, how are they going to support the young ones, as we call them, with no job, with no prospect, and above all, with an attitude that, number one, I didn't do it, and number two, the society owes me something because you took away a portion of my life. It's very difficult to reconcile those differences in regards to responsibility. There are people who do things out here after being released, and when I was chairman of the Committee on Corrections and Technology, and when I was in the Senate, we had over 26,000 inmates. I think we still got about that number now. We're going to stop putting them in there. We got no place to put them. Closed down 3 prisons because we couldn't support the people who manned those facilities. Because the Senate saw fit to cut the budget and not appropriate money. And therefore you had to pile them up in places where they had to accommodate each other. In other words, 2 and 3 to a cell. It's indignifying in regards to the South Carolina penal system. As far as manhood of man is concerned. I've represented a number of people over the years, and I'll tell them in a minute, you need to get your act together because they're going to send you down to Columbia as a man, but you're going to come back as a little girl. Because it happens. When a man is away from a woman, you can be sure of one thing, you're going to convert some people into your thought process. I believe that there were 26,000 inmates at the time I was in the Senate. As I said, it hasn't reduced. South Carolina hasn't reformed. It's punitive. It's degrading. It's, in my opinion, a lot of time inhumane. I went to a number of prisons while I was in the chair, as chairman. Spoke to a number of inmates. And no matter how you look out in the audience, you're going to see 8 out of 10 black males who is going to be one day returned to the community. They're going to seek some help. Now, David Richard has told you about the guy that left his office and went out here and robbed the bank. You got a whole lot of them out here who got no hope. They don't want to go William Tech, although William Tech is a very great institution, they don't have time because they have probation, parole, and pardon on their backs to pay support for their children. And then you got, of course, numerous children that some actually went to prison on. Contempt of court. They don't all serve time up in the detention center. If the sentence long as 6 months or more, they're going to send them to Columbia. You send them to Columbia, you're going to end up having them in the inmate population that's going to infest the society outside of Columbia and outside Cleveland.
Senator, so real briefly, how can we encourage lawmakers to go back to where it used to be, where there was an educational and a training program in the penal system, where they will allow teachers and instructors. I remember this, it's been at least 20 years ago. Now they got the 80% serving of your sentence and things of that nature, and all I think the only thing they're allowed to read in the psychology jails is a Bible. But there used to be opportunities. So how do we enforce the community to press on lawmakers to allow more training and development for individuals before they come out so they be better prepared for the workplace? You can give us that real quickly, then I'll move on to the next question.
Let me tell you this. When I was chairman of the committee, we had education credits, we had work credits, we had all types of credits that there, including conjugal visitation. You even had TV. After, of course, I didn't go back, the crowd that succeeded me, the chairman, they rescinded all of them. We have no education credits that's credited to inmates that was under my administration as chairman of the committee. Work credits, matters in which a person who is a human being who is benefiting from being incarcerated, notwithstanding the fact they didn't voluntarily go. But this crowd has no respect that's in office now to talk about education. The hell. They rescinded the education credit, they rescinded the work relief credit, they rescinded the conjugal visitation, they rescinded the ability to look at television and have television, and basically an invasive privacy situation. So you have no sensitivity down there, in my opinion. So you ask, what can we do? Only thing we can do, I hate to say it, is pray. And send some letters down there and let it be known that we need to have a more sensitive situation in place in regards to the inmates so that they can be prepared when they are released to come out with some kind of knowledge in their head and some kind of skills in their ability.
Senator, let me Ms. Floyd give us a follow-up to that question as well, and then we'll move on to our next questions. I want the audience get an opportunity to ask some questions as well and interact. About 10 more minutes.
I just want to briefly say this. I go into the prisons every other month, and I preach at various male institutions. I went to the one female institution, which is Leaf Female Correctional Institution, and it disheartened me. They wanted me to sing, I could barely even talk. The chaplain there told the women who were on the praise team that they couldn't even come to the service because she wasn't there. Now, I understand that they couldn't sing, but the fact that they couldn't come really just tore into my heart, because we all need someone who cares about us. I think what we can do as far as lawmakers is make our voice known, make our voice heard. Let them know that, there's a thin line between a left and a right turn. Everyone that is alive today is one step from making a wrong turn. You've done something, either you got caught or you got away with it. So we have to learn to say, We always talk about in God we trust, we Christians, or whatever your religious faith is. We're always talking about we love God. But the number one commandment God said is love others. So we need to go back to that, letting them know education is key. If we're going to have a job for someone, we have to educate them.
Absolutely. Okay, what I'd like to do, because I want to make sure the audience gets opportunity, I want you to have another round of questions to respond to, and then I want the audience to have opportunity to interact. We've got about 10 more minutes. But it's a question I want to apply to each person on the panel. Because we all assume all of Greenville natives have been around long enough to know this community. So we pretty much understand some of the challenges. So I won't get into much of the backstory with this next question. I just asked the question based on your experience, your professionalism, what you do every day. How optimistic is it for an ex-felon to be about finding gainful employment here in the city of Greenville? We're talking about Greenville County, the place where we live, where we work every day. We're not talking about Columbia, Charleston, we're talking about right here. Okay, folk you deal with every day. How realistic is it, or how really optimistic can they be? And I want each person on the panel to ask that question, but I want you to give me succinct answers so we can get the audience, because they have quite a few questions, and we'll give everybody the opportunity to do that. So, Jerry, we'll start with you, and then we'll walk down with that question. Everybody remember that question, so I'm going to repeat.
I think it depends on what you compare it to. If you compare it to the rest of the state, I think Upstate has a lot of great resources and great opportunities. And so probably compared to some other parts of the state, we have reason to be optimistic here that we can get our ex-offenders employed. Now, if you compare it to some of the other states and some of the progressive programs and things that they have in place, we have ways to go.
Okay.
From my professional standpoint, being involved with the Society of Human Resource Management and knowing what about 300 HR professionals are huddling over, I would say that I feel optimistic because when EEOC passed a law in October that mandated that companies are not supposed to discriminate solely on the basis of somebody having a conviction, now they have committees and councils that are being formed for HR professionals that are finding ways to engage with individuals that have criminal backgrounds, to find ways to bring them into their companies without violating that law, but also doing due diligence for their companies to protect them from liability or whatever. But there's a lot of discussion of how to compromise and at least start that engagement of potentially hiring individuals with background. So from a professional standpoint in Greenville, South Carolina, I feel optimistic that coming down the pike are going to be a lot of opportunities for the people that are coming to forums like this, getting valuable information about soft skills, resumes, interviewing techniques. The people that are preparing themselves to walk into those opportunities will have, a great opportunity if they stay the course.
Thank you. Dr.
I'm extremely optimistic for a couple of reasons. The entire correctional, and Minister Floyd can second this, correctional genre is looking at reentry. We are realizing that we don't have enough prisons for everyone and that the process of just punishment is not effective or helpful for anyone. So literally legislation has been passed that focuses on mandating that reentry services be provided to people who are criminal justice involved. What does that mean? That means that we are looking at what you need coming out of prison to be vital in society. Of course, we know a big piece of that is workforce development. Now, in terms of Greenville County, let me give you a statistic. 54.3% of the entire incarcerated population in South Carolina belong to the upstate. So the companies here have an obligation to be accountable to the people who live in the community and coming back to the community in which they make their money. And then there are programs like mine that's focused solely on reentry, that's focused solely research-based. My program is research-based on what people are high risk for that will make them engage in recidivist behavior. I'm addressing that. Pilot program with United Way. We have approached 7 corporations to say, if we get our people bonded, if we get them through the WIN program, where they're at least a bronze in terms of the Work Keys program, and they graduate from the Reflight curriculum, which is 476 hours of cognitive behavioral therapy, are they not hireable? And they're saying yes.
Right.
So I'm optimistic. We're working on it. You just gotta work on it. If you have a criminal record, you gotta do the work. You gotta come to Reflight. You gotta go to Work Keys. You gotta do the work as well.
Thank you, Dr. Caldwell. Senator, you gonna be succinct?
I'll be very brief. I find it very difficult to be optimistic at this juncture at the hiring rate of the state. The reason, about 2 hours ago, I had a young black female come in my office and showing me where she had been denied an opportunity to take a job because they had her listed as a convicted felon. And she isn't. There was an error made a number of years ago as far as her background is concerned. So, you know, if they turn that out of women, you know what they do out of men. Consequently, you can't count on corporations to be able to open the door and just let us flood it because it isn't there. The probability of our being able to prepare ourselves certainly is there, but the possibility is very difficult. I was just talking to counsel, young lady here. I have 2 clients in Lee where she has a ministry. And I certainly know that there is no effort at all to be able to give one educational or I call it Christianity training and exposure in regards to it. I was just down there 2 weeks ago. So I just want to let it be known, our penal institutions are punitive institutions. They are not remedial institutions. They are vindictive institutions.
Thank you, sir. See, Nathan, I don't get crowd. We want to make sure that they have opportunity to ask questions.
I'm optimistic that if you want to make something out of yourself, you can. You don't necessarily have to depend on working a 9-to-5 job. If you have a skill, and for most people, if you sold drugs, you know how to make money. Start your own business. There are so many people that have started a business in their home that have become millionaires. I didn't come home, even though I have so many resources in so many avenues because of my family, I didn't depend on them. I came home with a license to be a cosmetologist. I started working for myself. I have experience, I have a degree, and yes, one day I do plan to go back into corporate America, but it's not being solely depending on someone else to help you. You have to help yourself. You have to think in terms of what am I good at? What is my best asset? Go into those areas, dig deep, pray, talk to someone, find some things, and Green Protect is excellent, but if you don't have money to pay probation and parole, you're not going to have money to go and pay Steve Hand for one of his classes. Excellent. Work Keys, all of these things are excellent tools to help you get a 9-to-5. But I encourage you, seek becoming an entrepreneur as well. It's not out of the picture.
Thank you so much, Mr. Floyd. One of my favorite parts is, again, we have an excellent panel, and it's a great opportunity because I know a number of people in the audience have as much expertise as well as some of my people on the panel. They have other great ideas they can share with us. So what I'd like for you to do is if you have a question that you can pose to anyone on the panel, if your question is couched in a comment, I ask that your comment be succinct so everybody else who wants to ask the question, we've got about 10 minutes, Pastor, and then we'll move to our next panel. But I want to make sure we have a kind of a dialogue, comment, and answer. So any questions from the audience? Gary, yes, sir.
You don't even well.
Put that microphone up to your mouth and we'll talk into that.
What would me in the panel for y'all help what you're doing? Y'all serving as a bridge from one end to the other. But we need to talk about the core of the situation. Michael Jackson said, take a look at the man in the mirror. We're talking about the black community. For one thing, we need to look at the school system. Y'all talk about the school system. Address the issue of zero tolerance, and then look at the statistics. Who this affected? This affected our young men. Y'all talk about black men being angry. They got a reason to be angry. Where is the black men in the home? Okay, I'm gonna try to wrap all this up in one question. So, you're saying y'all need to come to us, okay? If I don't have no experience, my family come from poverty or whatever you want to call it, and I don't know the resource, how can you say these young black men come to me? I'm sitting here waiting. Now we talked about the church 2 minutes ago.
That's gonna be a question. Okay.
So how can we address the core? Now you mentioned ministry. The Bible says love thy neighbor, okay, et cetera. And I know you read it. We as a black community and in the churches need to address this, because every mother that come in here have a child, have a relative that's in prison, we do not talk about it. Worship and praying without works is in vain. So what are we going to prevent these problems?
I think that answers your question up there.
To answer that, that's why most people that have been in prison are starting to lead ministries. A person feels more comfortable coming to me than they would coming to someone else that has studied. And all they know is research. I have several men coming out of the state prison that want me to be their mentor. Not because they think I'm pretty, it's because I can relate to what they're going to go through. So my terms to you, education is key. You can do nothing without being educated. But if you look back at your forefathers, most of them had a 7th grade education and they made it just fine. So it's not about what happens in the house. My parents were divorced, but it didn't stop me from becoming the person that I am today. Not blame game. You can't play the blame game.
Okay. Pastor, we got 3 questions. The young lady here, the gentleman here, and the gentleman right here. So let's make comments, short and succinct question, and then okay.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
I commend all of you.
Your name, ma'am?
My name is Jennifer Garfield. I'm an ex-felon. I'm still a felon, let me say it that way. I've been in the prison system. I was without a job for 2 years. I heard each and every one of your statements. As you said, Mr. Mitchell, when you have to deal with the parole and pardon. When you get out and you go to parole and they put you on probation, they want their money. They don't want to hear nothing. And if you can't find a job, is it Kentucky Fried, McDonald's? They're even McDonald's, Bojangles. I remember when I went to Bojangles, they said they had to do a criminal background, and I'm looking at them like, I don't want to work on a register. I know me. I want to work in a magic kitchen because I love to cook. But they said no, and I told the truth on my application. And they said, I mean, you know, that sign, that little thing says, due to the fact that you've been in jail or whatever, it does not discriminate. That's a lie. It discriminates. And those females and men that come out and they tell them, well, you can get a job at Burger King or you can go to McDonald's, and you fill that application, everybody that I did not lie. But those 9 times out of 10, people are going to lie. And they might get hired until it's found out, but within that time, they see that they're making some money. That builds their hope because they're able to get back in the workforce. But what about these females? I'm not going to.
This is your question.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
The women that come out of the system that don't have nowhere to go. They've lost their kids. They've lost their self-respect. And they want a job. And because they're not even dressed the part. I mean, when you come out of prison, they don't teach you how to dress, how to go in a tie or a suit, and how to be presentable in front of that employer. So my question is, how can someone help someone to give them an opportunity to let these females know that it's not about what you did, it's about what we want to do now.
I know we've heard from Mr. Floyd on it, but I think a great person to ask that question would be Ms. Smith. She does a lot of workshops specifically as to what you're speaking of.
This is a combined response to Charles and to you. We sit on these panels, and I want everybody to understand that when I'm participating in these panels, I'm coming from a community perspective as well. I have businesses, which I probably work 20% of my life. The other 80% of my life is dedicated to reaching out to people. I go into the schools, and we all need to do this. I go into the schools. I talk about prevention. I spent 3 years in assemblies at the high schools talking about anti-gang messages. I have taken youth that wanted to get out of gangs into my home to help them escape from those situations. I go into the colleges. Bradley Robinson can attest to that. I talk to people to help. It's about being proactive and not always reactive. When it comes to women as well, that's a sweet spot for me. We have to look out for each other. Somebody had to tell me, Ava, this is not how you dress, this is not how you walk, this is not how you talk. Sit up straight, get rid of that gang mentality and your body language. Somebody had to impart that in me. So I feel very personally responsible to give that message. And I call chicks out in a minute. I'll tell them that's not appropriate. Leave out of my office. Don't come back in here with the rag on your head and flip-flops. You come back dressed like boom, boom, boom. I don't care if you have to wear the same outfit every single day. I use my office as a ministry and as a mentoring opportunity. I have women that come and work in my office that have come out of prison, no clerical experience, but they know when they hit the door that Ava is going to teach them not only the clerical skills, but the life skills. So, I mentor them out of love, but I will correct them, when they're wrong. It does take a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to help convert people so that they can walk in the manner in which they should go. Okay. I do put on my professional hat when I talk about these laws. I understand exactly what you're talking about. And I can't emphasize enough that the people that are filling out these applications need to be educated on the new laws, because there are certain ways that you can respond when you feel like you're rejected just simply because you have a background check. Now it is an enforceable law where companies can go down. So if you know people that are facing that situation and they need guidance on how to respond to that, it's 2 little words that all y'all have to remember is Ava Smith. I'm here.
Right. And we're going to let Renee and we have people question because, like Ava said, if you come to my office not dressed appropriately, we will deal with it. And the young ladies that come in, I do tell my assistants, I don't want to get in trouble because, I'm pretty frank. But these young men, Pastor tell you, on Sunday we had a little situation with a fellow next side. He want to come and be our musician wearing a tank top. He won't belong in our church. So wherever you are, you have to make sure you present yourself accordingly.
I just want to say that to what you're saying, we have what was formulated called Unshackle Me. And it is designed where we go into community centers and host resume drives. The resume drives are for ex-felons and any of their family members. The reason why we do this is so that you get soft skills, so that you get to interact, to have people coming in and tell you about what you should wear, how you should sit up, how your resume. We do this resume writing with them to help their to critique it, rewrite it. We also have clothes closets. At most churches, they have clothes closets. So to me, there's no excuse to stay home with no clothes. You may come home with no clothes, but you don't have to stay that way. Okay. So if you reach out to a church, I promise you, you won't have to live the way that you have been living when you got there. That's what we're there for.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. We have 2 more questions. I'm going to get to you. Get this gentleman here.
I'll be brief. My name is Bernard Smith.
Yes.
I work with Transportation Manufacturing Job Training Program. I was responding mainly to your response about whether you're optimistic or not in the future. And I tend to agree with Senator Mitchell as far as prospects. I see people every day, I see so many that has a background concern. There's not a whole lot that I can do with this story. I know that if I can't place them, there's not a whole lot they can get involved in program. And we've got maybe 1, maybe 2 companies that we feel like may take a chance on an ex-felon, depending on how long it is, of course, and all these things. I'm glad to hear that there's some sort of legislation that's going on. But until you actually deal with the companies involved, even though there may be repercussions as far as what you can't do, most people they still can't see that. They don't get to see that in fact you get out of prison, the system not a lot to do. I agree that there should be a penalty. There's a penalty for what you've done, and you've got to pay a price for a brief period of time. But it shouldn't keep you down for life. And right now, I don't see anything that's going on right now that's really affecting that in the near future. Maybe 5, 10 years, maybe. Right now, these guys right now, facing it right now. And I don't see anything that's going on that's really affecting it. I applaud the efforts you guys have got your organizations, but as far as overall, we have the people. There's so many more out there, there's nothing we can do.
What I want to do is for the panel answer the question, I'll let you send this question in and ask any response to either one of them you can. So I'll go to panel 2.
Thank you. Can I just congratulate people?
And you're going to be succinct, right?
Yeah, I'll be succinct. I can congratulate people on the panel for the analysis, but I think in terms of employment and people who are in jail, we have to look at, first of all, the overall picture. The Wall Street Journal just published some research showing that South Carolina has got, in terms of employment of young people, has got the third worst record in the country about this. So I think that's the number one you have to take into consideration. As a state, that's got a good record about employment. The second thing you have to also understand is that Greenville, which is one of the largest of the 3 areas, has not produced any job growth in the past 3 years. There's a standstill. The fourth thing is that a number of the job creators in Greenville are international companies. International companies. If they withdraw, the whole Greenville street will collapse. Now, I think this is the thing for us. When you talk about entrepreneurs, we've got to now get together and looking at how can we get people, black young people, and whatever age, to begin to think about outside of creating jobs outside of South Carolina. I'm talking about Africa now. I'm talking about how can you as an entrepreneur create products that you can sell in Nigeria, Ghana, or African countries. It's possible to do that. But it takes education, it takes a lot of planning, it takes a lot of marketing. And I think it's not about individuals now. It's about groups coming together. It's about looking at the causes and effects. So often we think about the effects, we don't know about the causes. And if the analysis of the causes are wrong, the solutions will be wrong. It's not about individuals, it's about the society, it's about economics. And I will end on this. Look at the statistics on black incarceration rate. 20% of black females who are incarcerated in South Carolina are for fraudulent activities. It's about checks forgery. It's economic. The problem is economic. And the number one for men is drugs. Economic again. So therefore, it's the economic situation we got to take into consideration. And because of analysis, entrepreneurs, creating our own economic structure. And the black church has got a role to play here now. And I think we got to sit down and talk about it, not as individuals, but as groups.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. We have ran out of time for this particular panel. We're not done. We have another panel of excellent experts going to come forward to share with us more on this black unemployment in upstate. I want you to give a round of applause to these excellent they got plenty of business cards, so if you want to follow up with them, you guys have a lot of good information I think you can share with them. Please make sure you interact with our panel. So again, thank our panel, Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Carolyn Caldwell. David Smith and Jeremy, we thank you guys for your participation today. We'll ask you to step down. This is our second panel. People come forward so we can, and don't leave now because we're going to need your expertise to ask them questions as well, okay? So our second panel, people come forward, we're going to do your introduction, then we'll get into some more dialogue. Is Minister Johnson still here?
Not much